Well, I want to welcome you, Mary Ellen, to Deacon Speaking. This is an opportunity for us to talk about the diaconate, what called you to the diaconate, and to share our love for the diaconate with the others in our diocese. So we have a few minutes together, and I want to begin with a pretty broad question of you.
Okay.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what called you in to the diaconate, to becoming a deacon?
Well, it really started when I was a kid. And I will thank my mom for a lot of it. I can remember on my brother's, I think, 7th birthday, so I would have been 4. My mother held his party at the local orphans home. And we made things for it, like planes out of gum and, with wings and all of that. So that had a big impact on me. And then as I grew up in the church, I was very frustrated because there were no women ordained. And our youth leader, who was a priest, he would have us up to his office every Wednesday just for cookies and chat. And I asked him one time, why can't women be ordained? And he said, well, I will tell you what the church tells us, but not that I believe it. And so he said, what if you were pregnant when you got ordained? Would the baby be ordained? And all this nonsense. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not buying that. And so, but I always had ministries, even as a teenager. The vestry would come to me because I was one of the leaders of the youth group, and would come to me when they needed a new ministry. And I was on the Junior Altar Guild, and, every place I could insert myself. And then, after a while, I went off to college. And the second year of college, I met my husband, and we decided that we would get married. And so we got married in the church where I grew up. And then we moved to Austin. And in Austin, I did attend a church there, but not as often as usual. I got caught up in being a young wife, and then after a while, a young mother. And then we moved to California. And it was funny because, I still felt that need for ministry, but I just didn't know how to work it into my schedule. But I was lonely. And my mom, bless her heart again, said, why don't you join a church? There's got to be people your age. And I did. And it was transformational. The second Sunday that I was there, the Sunday school director said, oh, we need Sunday school teachers. And my daughter, who was all of 6, said, Mom, you can do that. So I said, okay. And then I started meeting people and getting really involved in the church. And I was the director of the teachers, the education department. And then I became the director of the Altar Guild, and got more and more into it, but still feeling like there was something missing. And this may sound kind of weird, but it's true. One Sunday morning after the Eucharist, when the deacon was at the table, getting the dishes up, a voice came into my head, and it was nobody around me. It was just a voice from God saying, that will be you one day. And I was like, whoa. And, because I was working and had, Jennifer and Charlie was working. And so, but, if you want to do something, ask a busy person. But so I started thinking about it and fought it. Was like, no, not going to do that. And so then I'm trying to think what the time period was, but I guess that fall, my mom had a stroke when they were visiting back in Alabama. And I flew back there to be with my brother and my dad at her bedside because she died. And it was just so holy. It was just so holy that I said, I think I'm called to be a deacon, and I want to go to the school for deacons. And a big tear rolled down my mom's face, even though she was completely unconscious. And my brother and dad both went, yeah, that makes sense. And so my dad said, I'll pay for it. I was like, sweet. and so I came home and told Charlie, and he was kind of like, are you sure? And it's like, yeah. And so I contacted the school for deacons. But, all along I had been doing outreach type of ministries. And so I went to the school for deacons, and they let me come in mid-season. I came in January. I didn't even have to wait for the, new year. So I started then, and that was very inspirational because I was with other people and we could bounce our calls off of each other. And so that was wonderful. And the more I got into it, the more I felt like I was myself. That it was me.
You felt like you'd come home.
I did. I felt like, rather than wandering around going, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, it's like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I graduated after 3 years, and then a friend of mine from San Francisco said, I'm going to start a ministry at the local homeless shelter here in San Francisco, the Episcopal sanctuary, but I don't want to do it by myself. Why don't you come? So I drove like an hour and a half up to San Francisco, like 3 times a week, and could not believe the joy that I had of walking with people and helping them to see Christ in themselves. And it was just amazing. But after about 2 years of that, Charlie was like, we have a homeless shelter here in town, which was like 5 minutes from our house. And I said, okay. So I talked to the executive director and said, I'd like to start a chaplaincy program here. And he said, okay, great. And so I did. And again, it was wonderful. Charlie and I laughed and call it the Jane Goodall School of Ministry, because rather than going in and like, hello, how are you? I'm the chaplain here. I just wore my collar and went in and sat with them as they watched TV in the evenings. And pretty soon they'll be like the gorillas approaching Jane Goodall, curious. And so they're like, oh, do you live here? No, I'm the chaplain. Oh, what does a chaplain do? And so, I'd kind of explain, I'm just here to talk to you. I don't make any reports to anybody. I'm just here to listen. And before long, my dance card was filled every time I was there. And again, it was helping people to connect with God and to facilitate that. Because for me, it's all about being God in the world. Not being God, but reflecting God into the world. So I did that for quite a while, and then I finally got a job there at the shelter as the chief operating officer. And so So I then started training deacons from the School for Deacons. That became a place for them to come and work. And so that was wonderful, to be able to pass that along and to share my view of what ministry is, and help the students find their way. So that was wonderful.
That is so interesting to hear, Mary Ellen, because I did not know the part that brought you. I knew that you worked with the homeless for a long time, and I knew you worked in a paid position as well as unpaid. So I didn't know how those two had intertwined.
Right. Well, you hang around long enough, somebody's going to hire you.
What a wonderful colleague.
Yeah, it was. And it was then when I was like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. Because we were building affordable housing, because that's the solution to homelessness is housing. And so I was the daughter of a contractor and had done contracting type of work before, as a facilitator for that. And so it was just natural for me to come in to start running the projects that we had going. So that was really fun, because again, it was where I'm supposed to be, and the joy that comes from where you're supposed to be, and knowing that is just amazing. But
so interesting. Some of the questions that come up that I find are, so how do you know what your ministry will be? Do all deacons have the same ministry? What does it mean to be a deacon? And I listen to you and I can see how this is aligned for you. How would you answer that question then?
I would say no, not all deacons have the same ministry, because that would just be silly. We'd be pushing each other out of the way. But it's who you are and the experiences of your life that make you who you are, and that's what makes your ministry. So sometimes you just have to stumble around. I feel like that's what I did. I laugh that I became a shelter chaplain for all the right reasons. My friend Nancy said, "Oh, come do it with me." And I did it just because I liked her so much. We had so much fun. But that's where I found my ministry. So I think you have to you do what what somebody needs done, and then you reflect on it. How did I feel about that? Did I feel just completely uplifted and energized? Or did I feel like, the blood has just been drained out of my body? Because my theory of ministry is not supposed to hurt. It's not supposed to hurt whether you're ordained. It's not supposed to hurt whether you're lay. And so that's what I have been kind of working with at both of my parish in California and at All Saints out here, is helping people listen to what they're doing feels to them. So when people come and do the friendship meal is a vehicle. It is a meal, but it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle to get the parish involved in feeding the hungry. And we do it in several different ways. One of the ways is we come up with a menu and a list of food that needs to be purchased, and then we put it out to the congregation. And so if people can't come to help cook or serve or whatever, they can get a piece of the ministry, and it becomes more of a congregational ministry than look at the deacon, look what she's doing. And so we've done it that way. And then we have cooks, we have servers, we have greeters, and that we tell people that God's mercy is not limited And we are not going to turn people down for food. If they want seconds, you betcha. If they want thirds, go for it. Unless there's 20 people standing in line that you don't think you're going to have food for, and then you can say, gosh, can you get to the end of that line and we'll see what we can do? Or we can open a can of something. But it's about reflecting God, because we're a church. And so it's reflecting God to them. And
so you said something about, so you support people in finding God within doing ministry, and helping them to reflect on how that feels for them.
Right.
And you and I have talked about this, but so how do you, as the role of the deacon, how do you see that in terms of facilitating other people's ministries? Does that make sense?
I'm trying to think about, see if this is what you're thinking. I always approach it as ministry. I don't approach it as, okay, it's the friendship meal again. It's, you have an opportunity if you want to participate in this ministry. And so, one of my favorite parts of the ministry is when people will come from the congregation, will come and sit with people and eat, and share a meal, because that sounds kind of familiar biblically. But so to break bread together, I think, is very powerful. And so so that is a big piece of that ministry. And then, Pride, ever since Pride got off the ground here in Boise, All Saints has been involved. I think we started the second year they ever had it, and it's because they didn't advertise it the first year. And it was like 10 people walking around going like, "Argh." But then we were there, All Saints had a table, and people were kind of curious, but they didn't talk to us much. And, but we did, because of Lisa McLean, we had the fingernail painting, which people would stop and get their fingernails painted, and then we could talk to them. And so we've continued that to this day. And, that is another ministry that has brought me joy, but it's also the joy now for me, because I'm not getting any younger, is to pass that on to other people and let that be their joy. I could be the one who kind of lit the spark, but then they got to carry the sparkler further.
I love how you just said lit their joy. So in serving shouldn't hurt, but it really is a joyous experience of serving Christ and seeing Christ in others. Absolutely.
And if it hurts, you need to stop and say, this is not my ministry. And, some of the things I've had happen are people go like, God, I hate cooking. I don't want to cook anymore. And it's like, I am so glad that you found that out, because, we don't want you to, it's not supposed to hurt. And they're like, yeah, but I'll come and serve, and it's like, oh, and then they reflect back to me, that was so wonderful. So that is, but I think my role as a deacon is to empower ministry in others and to show them, to reflect with them so that they understand that it's not a chore. It's serving God. It's serving Jesus. And then, the people who come to the meal, they know that this is a safe place, and they know this is a happy place, and that they're going to be treated well. And they come with big smiles on their faces, which we meet in turn. So
it's mutually fulfilling.
And that's the way it should be.
You have another powerful ministry. You're helping with our deacon formation program, High Desert School for Ministry. How does this fit into your diaconal ministry?
Again, I think it's the same thing. When people, especially on retreat and stuff like that, like last year, my roommate and I had time to reflect together, and she would ask me questions, and, I would reflect back to her some of the things that we've just been talking about. Does it bring you joy? And you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know every bit of scripture, because you're the scripture that's being read. How you are behaving, how you are welcoming them, how you're treating them. That's the scripture.
That's pretty powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Making the scripture come alive.
Mm-hmm.
I was just talking to the bishop about that today, and he was talking about deacons being the word and service, where you take the word and you make the word alive.
Exactly. And that's what I have found is if it's just, if the church is just Sunday morning, that's really, really sad. I think it's called Jesus Wept. But it has to be living. It has to be vibrant. And and we need more than just deacons to do that. We need to get everybody involved in any way they can. And so a lot of the little old ladies who just don't have the stamina to do the serving or don't feel called to do the serving, they love going to the grocery store and picking up what we need. And that's their gift, and we empower that in them. So
as we finish up here, what you just said reminded me that there's a place at the table for everybody.
Absolutely. For everybody, not just the church, but outside the church. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this for us and meeting with us and sharing your ministry. And there's so much more you could tell us. I know we've just barely scratched the surface. But thank you for this time.
Well, thank you. This was really fun. It reminded me of why I do what I do. Because sometimes I'm like, oh my God.
Here we go again.
Well, no, it's just I'm not getting any younger. And, I can tell age is creeping up on me. It's no.
Right. Well, but one thing I see in you, Mary Ellen, is when the need comes up, you answer the call.
And Charlie's now saying, please don't answer the call so often.
There's something about, we can't, there's a former bishop, he said, ministry is what you cannot not do.
And that's exactly it. I have said that many, many times, is you're doing the right thing when you can't not do it.
Yes. Yeah. Being into that, right?
Yeah.
And so you keep on going. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I am grateful for your time, and
sure.
We can circle back another time because I know you have so many more stories to tell.